Hey there. So this is going to be the first video in the advanced question series for CAT. I have chosen these questions, self-curated, and I'll be going in the same way as CAT is. VARC first, LRDI second, and then quant. So in VARC, I'll be doing one RC set or 5 VA questions. Today it is one RC set. And then I'll be going for one LRDI set and then 5 questions of quant. They are advanced questions, difficult questions, but very much relevant to CAT. And I'll share my strategies, how do I go about it. So today, for the RC session, the flow of the class will be like this. First, I will show you the passage. After that, I'll discuss the main idea, then the supporting ideas, and the main argument, then the redundant information, paragraph-wise. So main idea, you understand that what the author is trying to convey, trying to prove, maybe prove a point, just state a fact, that can be main idea, paragraph-wise. Absolutely, there is a main idea of entire passage, but every paragraph also has main ideas, and the combination of it all forms the primary purpose or the main idea of the entire passage. Supporting ideas, again, there can be multiple supporting ideas, paragraph-wise, which on an average form the supporting ideas of the entire paragraph, entire passage. Same with main argument, same with, now this information, redundant, this is something which we don't require, okay? So this is very important to understand what has to be read and what has not to be read. By the way, by this just one session, you won't be able to, kind of realize how to choose what is required and what is not required, but over some time, you'll be able to understand that. So let's start with today's passage. All right, today's passage is more about society and how governments are formed. Here we go. Some writers have so confounded society with government as to leave little or no distinction between them. Okay. Confounded. This means getting confused. Like some writers have confused that society and government are probably same. Okay. So there is no distinction. Little or no distinction. Probably there is very less distinction or there is no distinction at all. Okay. Which means, before reading further, I come to an understanding that probably the writer of this passage would want to prove that somehow society and government are two different things. Right, that is why he has told some writers have confused it. Whereas they are not only entirely different, but have different origins. And he says, he or she, whoever the author is, says that they are not just different, they also have different origins. Like they originated in a different way. All right. So in this session, a lot of people have told me that you should also speak Hindi in between, and the people had told me you should skip Hindi at all. By the way, in CAT, it's all English. That is why I'm not going to use Hindi. In case you want me to explain certain things in Hindi, tell me in the comments after you have watched the session. All right. Society is a blessing brought forth naturally by our wants, uniting our affections and promoting our happiness. Now, he says, he defines society in a way that society is a blessing. It's a good thing. Blessing, that means it's a good thing. Society is a good thing. Because, it has been created naturally. How? So we humans had some kind of wants, desires. We had some affections. So if you unite all of it, the wants, the desires, the affections, it will be basically transformed into the entire system, will transform into a society. In Hindi, we call it Samaj. Okay. And this will promote our happiness. Government is a necessary evil originating from the need to restrain our vices. It says necessary evil. So why it says evil? And when do we use this phrase necessary evil? When there's an idea or a phenomenon or a structure or a thought process which has a lot of criticism, like we criticize governments, isn't it? That is why we use evil term over there, but necessary because that is really required. Even if, criticize it, it is required. Why? Because government here, when society was made, government here was required to restrain our vices. What are vices? When you have bad habits, gambling, smoking, etc. There can be multiple vices. So government controls it. Right? Government forms the police department, the defense, all that systems. So when society is there, we need a government. It's a necessary evil. We cannot ignore that. Now, so first paragraph, what has it done? What has it done? It has kind of introduced the idea that society and government is Different? Okay, I'll go paragraph by paragraph, I'll tell you. But before that, let us read the second paragraph also. Second one says, suppose a small number of persons represent the first peopling of any country. Peopling is populating. A lot of people, come together. That is, peopling is populating something, some territory. Suppose a small number of persons represent the first peopling of any country or of the world. In this state of natural liberty, 1,000 motives will excite them to society. So when some people are there, they will have a kind of liberty, which is natural, because there's no government to control, right? So it will be a natural liberty that is naturally occurring. Okay. And obviously, if some people are there, they will have different motives. So 1,000 motives will excite them to society. Okay. The motives will excite them into developing a concept which will be called a society in future. The strength of one is so unequal to his wants and his mind so unfitted for perpetual solitude that he is soon obliged to seek assistance and relief from another who in turn requires the same. All right. Now, this is a kind of, very loopy statement. These are the kind of statements which we should not think much about unless required in some question. But if I kind of summarize it, it discusses that there are thousands of, motives and strength of one motive. The strength of one motive is it can be unequal. So basically, all the motives would not be having the same kind of strength or the weightage or the effect. So some will be unequal, and this will be unequal to what? His wants, whose wants? An individual's wants. His mind would not be, probably his mind would not be fit enough, to have a solitude, because we humans are somehow, we are social animals. We cannot live in solitude, in perpetual. Perpetual is like continuing solitude. That he is soon obliged to seek assistance and relief from another. So basically, because we humans can have so strong desires, strong motives, but probably we don't have that kind of skills or mental capacity to realize that. And that is the time when we need assistance and relief from some other individual. That is how society is essentially formed, right? So now I have explained you how society is formed through this paragraph. Considering the slavish times, slavish is when there was slavery, slavish times in which it developed, the form of government known as constitutional monarchy is granted to have been a noble creation. So when there was slavery, at that time monarchy was considered to be of good origin, noble origins. Okay, there is a monarch who is trying to, kind of control and govern the entire territory, which can be a country, a state, or whatever, a society. When the world was overrun with tyranny, the least removed therefrom was a glorious rescue. So at that time, when there was slavery, there's a monarchy, because, there has to be a centralized power. There was monarchy. Monarchy comes from mono. Arc is rule. So rule by a single person. There is monarchy. So monarchy ultimately developed to tyranny. Tyranny is a bad thing. The monarch was kind of controlling everything and everyone. That's not a good thing. So at that time, least remove is the minimum steps that can be taken to accomplish a goal. That is where the least remove, this phrase is used. Least remove therefrom was a glorious rescue. However, because of this, to rescue this form of tyranny, governments might have been formed. However, government, if unchecked, evolves over time to a form so complex that a nation may suffer for years without being able to discover in which part the fault lies. Now, the thing is, why it is necessary evil, the author explained that as well. Why it is evil? If it is unchecked, like nobody is there to, criticize the government, analyze the governmental procedures, left unchecked, nobody's checking it, nobody's verifying it. At that time, it can become very complex with time, over years. Okay, and it becomes so complex that a nation in future would not be able to identify the exact fault, pinpoint to a single fault that what is the problem that this government is, doing something which is unwanted. And every political physician will advise a different medicine. And because nobody knows what the exact fault is, so every person who will be an expert in the political ideologies, political studies would be giving us different approaches, when they say medicines, that means different remedial procedures. So obviously there will be a problem. So I'll summarize that. If government is left unchecked, There'll be problems which will be so complex that we won't be able to pinpoint to a single fault, and that is why a lot of people would point to different faults and we won't be able to sort the entire thing out. Let's go to the third paragraph, which says 4 or 5 united in a society, 4 or 5 united in a society would be able to raise a dwelling. But one might labor out the period of life without accomplishing anything. So see, 4 or 5 means 4 or 5 individuals. They can, they can be united in a society and they will be able to raise a dwelling, means to earn a livelihood, to do all things which humans should do in society, earning livelihood, having food, having shelter, having kids, all that stuff. But at the very same time, some people might, over the period of time, they might not be able to accomplish anything of it. That is a possibility. Multiple reasons are there. Disease or misfortune could soon reduce an individual to a state in which he could easily perish. It can be disease, misfortune, accidents, mishaps. As time passes, however, in proportion as they surmount their early difficulties, the people will inevitably relax in their duty and attachment to each other. All right. This laxity will point out the necessity for each to surrender a part of his property in order to establish some form of government to protect the rest. So what will happen? There will be, because some people will not be able to accomplish anything. So I'll just, kind of summarize it. Looks like a difficult passage, but I'll just summarize it in simple words. So over time, some people would not be able to accomplish anything due to disease, misfortune. That is the time when other people who have accomplished things might have to, impart some of their properties to others for the goodwill of entire society. All right. And that is the reason establishing some form of government is necessary, because government will protect the other individuals who are not able to accomplish anything. Here then is the origin of government, the inability of moral virtue to govern the world. Here too is design and end of government, freedom and security. So this is where the origin of government lies. Government is required to safeguard properties, to safeguard values, and inability of moral virtue to govern the world is design and end of government, freedom and security. So what happens after government is there, government is established? What's the reason? Because moral virtue might be, unable to govern the entire world. That is why we require some kind of procedures, government procedures. That is why government is required. And at this place also, the design of government, even end of government, the freedom, security given by government might be challenged. Well, and it unanswerably follows that, that means we are not able to find an answer. Follows that whatever form of government which appears most likely to ensure the protection which constitutes government's essential purpose. So now it says government's essential purpose is to ensure the protection of individuals, properties, etc. with the least expense is preferable to all others. So basically, it says that out of all things that we have done, the essential purpose of government is to protect and preserve the individuals. And if a government can do it with the least expense, least wastage of resources, the most efficient way of exploiting resources, that kind of government is the most preferred one. That is the best form of government. As the community expands, public concerns will increase, and the distance at which the members are separated may render it inconvenient for all to meet on every occasion. Community will expand, obviously. Now, this is something which you can understand. Community expands, distances increase, physical distances, even the mental, emotional distances increase. It becomes very difficult for people to, kind of support each other. Thus, the members may consent to leave the legislative part to be managed by a number of chosen representatives who are supposed to have the same concerns as those who appointed them and who will act in the same manner as the whole would, if present. So it's like, when this thing happens, we would be requiring more people, some people who, the people who choose the government. Out of those people, some people who will kind of assisting the government in a way, okay, and they will not be kind of making the laws, but will be managing, okay. Thus, the members may consent to leave the legislative part to be managed by a number of chosen representatives. So they would not be in no lawmaking. Probably they will be choosing some representatives who would be having the same concerns as those who appointed them. That the interest of every part in the colony may be attended to, the whole may be divided into convenient parts, each part sending its proper number. So basically now the author is talking about how to, kind of make the essential small blocks of government, and every small block of the government would be solving the purpose, solving the problems, right? So that there be assured a common interest with every part of the community on which the strength of government depends. Prudence will point to the need for frequent elections, thereby assuring that the elected return and mix often with the community. So basically, to make it short, it's like if you talk about Indian government, democratic system, there is a cabinet, then there are legislative assemblies, legislative councils. Okay, so there are panchayat raj is there. There are multiple government bodies which govern things at a local level, district level, state level, then the central level. That's just an example. There can be multiple government examples, multiple forms of government examples in which work is somehow divided at local, state, and national level. That is how a government will actually be able to preserve the or do the thing for which it was required after society. All right. Okay. I think I made myself clear, but let us try to kind of break down everything. The first paragraph, if you remember, the main idea, primary idea here is society and government are distinct entities with different origins and purposes. That is a primary idea. Supporting idea, society arises naturally from human wants and affections. Government arises from the need to control vices. Supporting idea. Main argument, while often confused, society is a natural good, natural good. Government is an artificial necessary evil. Now, what is redundant? None. Everything here is important. It was a small paragraph, just a single line. Next. Second paragraph. This talked about, small number of people representing first peopling of any country and seeking assistance, all that stuff. Here, the primary idea is formation of society is a natural consequence of human limitations and needs. Supporting ideas, individuals are not self-sufficient, they seek help from others. I explained that. Solitude is a natural interdependence creates society. We are social animals, right? That has not been said, but that is something which we understand. Constitutional monarchy was a positive historical development during tyrannical times. It was good in the olden times. Government becomes complex over time and hard to fix. Supporting ideas. Main argument, human limitations necessitate society and historical governments, though better than tyranny, can evolve into unmanageable systems if unchecked. That is the main argument. What is redundant? The brief mention of constitutional monarchy may slightly digress, though it ties back into the evolution of government. However, it partially distracts from the paragraph's core focus on society's natural formation. This is very important. Constitutional monarchy, was being talked about here. So this was a digressing from the topic here. You know what? See, I'll tell you what becomes redundant. It is majorly the examples. If you get the core idea from other things, examples are not required. Examples are just made to make you understand things. So if you want to read and kind of get everything what the author is trying to say, this will be an important information, because that is how we tell the stories. We need to give examples. But for the VARC questions, there is a high improbability that there will be questions which can be formed on examples. That is why I have rendered them redundant. Hope you get it. Next paragraph. When it was 4 or 5 people, they were able to raise the dwelling. There's some who could not accomplish things. Primary idea, as society grows and human bonds weaken, government becomes necessary. Supporting ideas, cooperation enables basic survival and development. Over time, solidarity weakens, necessitating formal governance. Third, government emerges due to the failure of moral virtue to fully regulate behavior, moral virtue of humans at large. Government exists to protect freedom and ensure security. Main argument, government arises when moral bonds are insufficient to maintain order and safety. Here, nothing is redundant because everything is talking about the logically towards definition and purpose of government. This third paragraph was all about how and why government is made and required. Well, next. Primary idea, best form of government is the one that ensures protection with the least cost. I think I emphasized on that because that is what the primary idea is. The entire thing talks about this. Supporting ideas, population growth, distance complicate direct democracy, representation becomes necessary. Representative should reflect the consensus will of the people. As I discussed about the legislative councils, legislative assemblies, panchayat raj, all that stuff from Indian perspective. Main argument, representative government is a practical evolution of governance as societies grow, as long as it remains accountable. Somehow I think we have got a great government system. Redundant is nothing. Paragraph maintains tight relevance to the central idea of governance efficiency. Last paragraph, primary idea to ensure representative government remains effective, structure and electoral mechanisms must support accountability. Okay. Supporting ideas, colony should be divided for balanced representation. Frequent elections ensure representatives remain connected to the people. A shared community interest is vital to the strength of government. That is why we have frequent elections in a democracy. Main argument, sustaining good governance requires structural mechanisms like fair divisions and frequent elections to preserve alignment with the public interest. Nothing is redundant over here because everything contributes to argument for accountable and representative government. Let's go to the questions. I hope you understood everything. First question, as evidenced by the arguments posed by the author in each paragraph. Look at this. The primary purpose of the passage is to chronicle the development of a particular form of government. Chronicle the development. So is this entire passage mentioning or documenting that how a particular form of government has been developed? Not really. It has never said what kind of government it is talking about. Somehow it's democracy, but it's never been said out loud. So A doesn't, fit to be the primary purpose. Even if it has been talked about unconsciously, it's not a primary purpose. What is the primary purpose? Because I have shown you primary purpose of all the paragraphs. And the primary purpose of the entire passage will be a sum together. Okay, let's see. Second one says, advocate a simple form of a representative government. This looks correct because the passage, all the paragraphs, they were starting from how society is made, then why government was required, then how with the expanse of society, government might fail in some cases. We won't be able to understand the fault. That is why we need representative government and at various levels of governance. So the complexity has been probably, in a way, the author was trying to remove the complexity and form a simplistic government which will be consisting of representatives at various levels. All right, B looks correct. C says contrast society and government. No, that is something which was given only in the first paragraph, not in the entire passage. We cannot go with this. Criticize all forms of government as an unnecessary burden on people. No, government has been supported here. The idea of government has been supported here. Okay, author said it's a necessary evil, but it said necessary was the word here. So, and this thing is partially true because it's not the primary purpose. We'll go with B. Now, a difficult question like this becomes easy because what we have done here. We have tried to analyze each and every paragraph, and you will think that this will going to take a lot of time. Not really. Keep on practicing like this. Stay tuned. Like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends also preparing for CAT, GMAT, GRE, whatever. And you know what? Over a period of time, because this series is going to continue. By the time CAT is there, you would have done so many passages that you will be getting an idea how to look at the exact purpose, argument, ideas of every paragraph. Next one. The author concluded in the passage that the essential purpose of government is protection of property. In doing so, the author assumes that, first says there actually existed a time in which the disparity between an individual's needs and wants motivated cooperation and not transgression against property. Okay, so if I want to understand this, in second paragraph, we have the idea. It says, in this state of natural liberty, 1,000 motives will excite them to society. The strength of one is so unequal to his wants and his mind so unfitted for perpetual solitude that he is soon obliged to seek assistance and relief from another, who in turn requires the same. Okay, so basically, if this is what author has said, so author must have made some kind of assumption, and that assumption was that in the past, probably similar kind of thing happened. First option talks about that only. there actually existed a time disparity between individuals' needs, wants, motivate cooperation, not transgression against property. So first looks correct to me because there's been mentioned here, and this can be mentioned only if author has kind of assumed that this thing actually happened. People tried to cooperate in the olden times as well because of social needs. Second, the part of property surrendered to establish some form of government. Okay, part of property surrendered to establish some form of government is less than that which would be lost if it were left unprotected. All right, so we have two ideas here. One is property surrendered to form government. Second is if that did not happen, property would be lost if it were left unprotected. Has author assumed that? Let's see. In third paragraph, we have something like that. This talks about some people can raise a dwelling, but one might one might not accomplish anything because of disease or misfortune. All right. As time passes, people will inevitably relax in their duty, attachment to each other. This laxity will point out the necessity for each to surrender. The thing is, because we have the mental map, as I told you in the previous slides, we know that this is where the answer would lie somehow. To surrender a part of his property in order to establish some form of government, okay, that is given to us to protect the rest. Here then is the origin of government. Now, okay, first part has been talked about. Second part has not been talked about. It is nowhere mentioned or even kind of implied that that property would be lost if it was unprotected. It says, the property which we surrender will form government, and the government will try to protect the properties of other individuals who have not accomplished anything. So author must have, because that is given to us, author must have assumed that, this part, okay? But author would not be assuming that this will be lost if it were left unprotected. Because if that was the case, author would be somehow trying to say that government would be taking off the property which are unclaimed. Author has not said that. So second cannot be the assumption. Third, the moral laxity resulting from reduction in hardship results in acts against property rather than failure to assist those experiencing disease or misfortune. Moral laxity. See, so there's moral laxity. Then people, people who are facing hardships, the moral laxity resulting from reduction in hardship results in acts against property. So basically, when people, when there are no hardships, people might become lazy. People might not be thinking of other people. That is the moral laxity. So this acts against property, and whereas it should be acting, it should be acting for assisting those experiencing disease or misfortune. All right. So author somehow feels that because of moral laxity, the people who have not accomplished anything, the people who are not accomplishing anything that can be improved by reducing the moral laxity. All right. So this is where the government should jump in. Primary purpose of government is protect the property, and that is for everyone. So the morality which is somehow kind of reducing, that will go against property, not of an individual but as a community, society as a whole. All right. So to assist those experiencing disease or misfortune can happen if there's moral laxity. All right. That means author has assumed that this can happen if people have become far from each other and there is no moral compass guiding them. So obviously this can happen. That is why author is talking about the government is required so that the properties that people are giving away for the underprivileged or the unaccomplished, that is why government is required, because it protects the property. The third is also kind of assumption. We'll go for 1 and 3 only. By the way, if you see 1 is present over here, and here. 2 is obviously not the answer. You can also go for elimination. 2 is not the option. So this and this and this is already over. D is correct. That is also a way of doing it to save some time. So, in these kind of questions, you can look at the different combinations of the options, and that is how you can save some time and get going. Next, it can be inferred from the passage that its author would most probably respond to the view that the resources of government should be employed to relieve the effects of poverty by stating that. Okay. Author would most probably respond to the view that the resources of government should be employed to relieve the effects of poverty by stating what? First says, since the strength of an individual must be recognized to at times be unequal to his needs, it is natural for government, once it has evolved, to perform such functions. Okay. These activities should be performed by individuals or associations outside of government. All right. This option talks about the need for evolution of government. This talks about representative form of government, representative form, who are looking at things on different levels. Since poverty is correlated with crime against property, government must perform these functions if non-governmental efforts are not fully effective. All right. Resources of government should be employed to relieve the effects of poverty. Okay. And author will most probably respond to the view. Respond. How he'll respond. So let's say this is not the view of author. If someone has the view that resources of government, we actually don't understand the question clearly. If someone has a view that government resources should be employed to relieve people from poverty, then how would author respond to that? How would author respond to that? What will be the author's response? Can author respond like this? Strength of individual must be recognized. It's unequal to his needs, natural for government, once it has evolved to perform such functions. That is not a response. That is basically a fact stated by author in the passage. This can be a response. These activities, which activities? Activities for relieving the effects of poverty should be performed by individuals or associations outside of government. That is where the representative government comes into play. There are people who can, who have the same concerns as the people who chose them. Those people can actually, perform these activities. And this is a response that, okay, we don't need government, totally for doing it. It can be people who are outside of government. It can be a response. I'll put a question mark here. C says, since poverty is correlated with crime against property, government must perform these functions if non-governmental efforts are not fully effective. Now here, this can be a response, but this response would be would come into play if crime has been talked about, and also this option says that government should be performing these duties, which goes against, and also it's very I would say extreme statement, crime against poverty. It could have been true, but we have a better option in B. That is why I will eliminate C. D says this should be decided by the representatives elected by the people as a whole. Okay. Now, between B and D, we can get confused. Let us try to general. A and C are gone. Between B and D, B says individuals, associations outside of government, they should do those activities. Which activities? Relieve the effects of poverty. D says they should be decided by the representatives elected by the people as a whole. Now, representatives are again government. So it's a different way of saying that government is going to do it. All of it, A, C, and even D to some extent, talks about government should do this. Only B is the one where it talks that people outside government can also be doing that. So that's a response. That's a right response. So response doesn't mean that you have to, go contrary to that. Response can be positive also. But then, from the entire passage, the author has somehow talked about the moral complexity also. And the author has also talked about there are some individuals who have accomplished a lot, and in the old age, when they have accomplished everything, now they must give out their properties in third paragraph. Here lies the exact answer. And we go with B. So this can be done by some people who are outside of government. By if they have more, they can just kind of spread it out to the other people. All right. Next, which of the following, if true, It's a critical reasoning question. If true, would most weaken the author's distinction between society and government as fundamentally separate in origin and purpose? So if we get an option in which it says any option which proves historically or scientifically that both of them were similar and both coexisted. First one says historical evidence suggests that early human groups often formed social units and systems of punishment at the same time. Social units is society, systems of punishment is a form of government only. I think A would weaken the author's distinction because this somehow suggests that society and government has the same origins. Let's read other options also. I'll put a question mark here. In modern democracies, civil society and government frequently collaborate to deliver public services. This modern society, here we talk about origin, so that means B is not the correct statement because that doesn't talk about origins. See, certain forms of governance, such as tribal councils, arose independently in different parts of the world and did not necessarily evolve from social relaxation. This looks correct. But at the very same time, it says did not necessarily evolve from social relaxation. So it gives us a confusion. A is a better option than C because C still has some doubt. D says there is no empirical evidence to prove that early individuals were naturally drawn to cooperation rather than conflict. Now this is not weakening but strengthening the argument, so we'll go with A only. I hope you enjoyed this. In the next session of this series, I'll be doing a LRDS set on quant-based reasoning puzzle. So I'm choosing, in case like we are doing multiple initiatives. Shabana ma'am is doing something, Ras is doing something else, Kamal is doing something else, Sajjan is doing something else, Prashant is doing something else. I'm focusing on because I'm focusing on the most, what if CAT becomes difficult somehow, then this series is going to work a lot. So easy things, moderate things, difficult things, relevant things, irrelevant things, this entire initiatives by different faculty members is all about making you grow. So this series will be important to you if CAT becomes difficult or very difficult. Thank you.